Hello, everyone. My name is Chad LaRoque. I'm the Housing Development Manager, and I hope everyone can hear me. Uh, it is 10 o'clock, so in interest of everybody's time, we'll go ahead and get started. We have an hour and a half blocked off for this for the forum, but actually, I think we'll definitely be less than an hour. We are not going to have many changes to this year's policy. So I thank everyone for joining us. We're in the midst of moving to our new home at the new city hall, so we kind of opted for a virtual option this year. So hopefully we can all get together at our new home next year. So today we'll have a quick introduction of staff, quickly go over the current policy and our proposed changes, and then we'll give an opportunity to receive feedback from everyone. And then Tamara Jones is going to be joining us and go over the disaster recovery grant and some opportunities that may be coming up as far as funding for that particular grant. So we have in the past 6 months or so had some changes with neighborhood services. So Casey Best is our new director. I am the housing development manager, and I currently have Diane Anderson, Justin McLaughlin, and Sarah Odell as our coordinators. And Virginia Villalobos is our admin assistant. I recently offered to 2 new coordinator positions, so hopefully they'll be on board with us soon. And also joining us today, we do have some other city staff. We should have Tracy Edwards and Janira Mahias with communication and public engagement. LaShondra Stringfellow was going to join us from development services. With Fort Worth Lab, Nathaniel Ebers and Francisco Previto, and legal would be Leslie Hunt and Dennis McElroy. So if there's any questions that may arise that's specific to those departments, I may have them jump in and answer those questions. So last year we heard about wanting additional fee waivers. So what we did include was up to 30,000 in fee waivers for projects, and no less than 500. Also, if a project is in a neighborhood empowerment zone, we do encourage you to please apply for the neighborhood empowerment zone fee waivers, because you could actually possibly, even obtain a greater amount of fee waivers in that instance. There is a new, we did find out this year, though, that impact fees are no longer going to be waived through the city. That is because there is an ordinance that was discovered that had been around since 1990 that states that any water or sewer impact fees cannot be waived unless there is another source of funding to replace those waived fees. So unfortunately, we are not going to be able to waive those particular fees moving forward. The 10% set aside, so that was actually eliminated for 4% projects last year, the 0 to 30 AMI. However, we will maintain that proposal for the 9% applications, and that will also apply to total units. We had discussion with city staff, and it's in most cases it turns out to just be a handful of units that the difference. So we are going to still keep that at total number of units, the 10%. And then as far as any additional partnerships with the Fort Worth Housing Finance Corporation, we did have one partnership move forward this year. However, we have been tasked, and the Fort Worth Lab has been tasked with coming up with criteria for us to evaluate projects and any impact that they may have on city revenue. So until that's process is finalized, we most likely will not be accepting any new partnership opportunities at this time. And now I'm going to talk about what we've proposed for the upcoming year. So this previous year, the zoning letters and the hold harmless letters would be requested through neighborhood services. We were This year we're going to change that those requests go directly to development services. And then Lysandra, I can have, if you wanted to touch on anything about that, I can, if you wanted to speak on that and how that process would work. If you wanted to go ahead and jump in, I'll let you.
Hello, everyone. I'm LaShondra, Stringfellow. One of the things that I guess we would say that would help make the process go much more smoothly for you, we will probably handle it very similar to a zoning verification letter. And I'm sure, most of you are probably familiar with those. It's pretty simple. It goes, through our customer service rep. You can even request it online. If it's if the use is allowed, then that is the most easiest thing we can do, right? You can get that same day. Where it gets a little bit more complicated is if it's going to require a zoning change. Because if it requires a zoning change, then of course, we have no say so over what happens. Of course, that's a political process, just to be honest with you. So we're looking at zoning commission. There are the neighborhood groups, as well as other property owners, and then we got city council. And so in those instances, we'll work with you. And those whole harmless letters, what we've done in the past is, we've said things like, this is a process that it has to follow. And, we're of course asking you to not hold the city, responsible in the case that the zoning is not approved. But of course, the easy ones we do is if the zoning is allowed, then you're just going through the administrative process. And as long as you're agreeing to meet the requirements in the code, then there are no issues. But if you have any idea, even if you know that a use is allowed, but maybe there's something like maybe a buffer yard, or maybe you want to increase the height, something that may require a variance, or any type of waiver, we ask that talk to us about that, even if you know that the use is allowed, because that just helps us, give you an idea of what to expect throughout the process.
All right, thank you. And then if we need any more clarification, we can get that out on our feedback Q&A here in a few slides.
Yes.
Additionally, we had set quarterly deadlines for 4% applications. We are going to go ahead and proposing to remove that for 2025. That way, so applications can really be submitted at any time on a rolling basis. Just keep in mind that if you are wanting to hit a specific deadline, that you would most likely want to get that to us about 6 weeks in advance. That way it gives us time to review the application and also route it through our mayor and council system, and have the Fort Worth lab and city manager's office review and ask any questions they may have. Another change is that community engagement office will respond within a week of notification regarding the neighborhoods that would be impacted. Previously, that was a 2-week period, but we think we can get that turned around within a week. And that should be able to help on any meetings you may need to have. And then also for our notification, we've added neighborhood alliances. Again, that's something that's came up. We usually I think an alliance is made up of several homeowners associations or neighborhood associations, but we just want to make sure that we don't want anyone to say they weren't aware of it. So we have added neighborhood alliances for the notifications. Again, none of this changed. For a 9% support, you would need to have a minimum of your 10% units at 0 to 30 AMI, be located in a TDHCA defined opportunity area or city mixed use growth area, or a choice neighborhood implementation area. Must submit written notification to council members, staff, the school district, and the registered neighborhood associations, homeowner associations, and neighborhood alliances. And then must hold the information session prior to the application deadline. If the 9% application is not located in one of the defined areas, it would most likely go forward for a no objection. And then for our 4%, you must, there is no minimum set aside, and it does not need to be located in one of the designated areas. However, you must still submit your written notifications and hold an information session. And here's our proposed timeline. We have our, today's our forum. We would like to have the policy approved by mid-November. Deadline to submit notifications to the city and all other impacted organizations would be December 4th. And then deadline for application to neighborhood services would be January 5th. And here quickly on the community engagement process, developer would notify the neighborhood services department of their intent to submit the application and list the address of the development. And then the neighborhood services will prepare a map of any associations within a half-mile radius of the development and will send that over to the community engagement office. Once that's done, community engagement office will send an email within 1 week. That's something we've changed. It was 2 weeks to all the affected organizations, and let them know of the proposed development. It is the developer's responsibility to engage with the homeowners associations or neighborhood associations and hold at least one information session. And the session does not have to be held at a regularly scheduled meeting. It just needs to, you can have one meeting, it can be held, it should be held, near the affected area, and any affected organization should be notified. And now we will open it up to any feedback on the policy.
I just have a quick question, if I may. This is Antonio from McCormick Barron Salazar.
Yes, sir.
I just some clarification on the neighborhood presentations that you just mentioned. Can those still be done virtually as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We just ask that you do record it in the instance
Exactly.
that a council member may, request proof of it or proof that the meeting was held.
Okay. Yeah, we've done that in the past. Okay, I'm familiar with that. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I see one from Jamar Stewart. Will the presentation be available for download? We will put this up on our website, so we can send out a link to it. Oh, I'm sorry. Diane did answer that. I apologize.
Yeah, so we're recording this and the link's going to be available for y'all. And I'll also summarize the policy and any questions and answers during this session and a question and answer sheet that's going to be on our website as well.
Any other comments before I turn it over to Tamara? Okay, Tamara, I think you're up.
Awesome. Thank you, Chad. Can everyone hear me okay? Thumbs up. Awesome. I see see a head shake. Awesome.
Yes, we hear you.
Sometimes my internet goes in and out where I'm located, so I apologize in advance. So my name is Tamara Jones. I am interim neighborhood services manager for the neighborhood revitalization and improvement division within neighborhood services of the city of Fort Worth. And so I'll be going through briefly on our community development block grant disaster recovery program, specifically to multifamily today. So we'll go through some overview, and then in terms of multifamily, the breakdown that we have currently for multifamily and any questions that you may have. So the president declared CDBGDR, is when the president declares a major disaster, and then Congress, of course, appropriates funds to Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. CDBGDR can be used for specific items such as disaster relief, long-term recovery, restoration of infrastructure, housing, and economic revitalization. Who is eligible to receive this funding? So any members of the public that is impacted by the disaster cannot receive DR funds directly from HUD, but the funds are awarded to the state and local governments, which will become grantees. Excuse me. Next slide, please. So why do we have this funding? So many of you may or may not know that back in 2021, we had a winter storm called Winter Storm Uri that was declared a major loss in Texas grid. And so with the amount of the 2 weeks of period where we lost power, lost access to food and water, the Congress declared this emergency. FEMA also, FEMA was established in April of 1979 under President Carter. And of course, it provides assistance before, during, and after disasters. So the purpose of these funds is to focus on long-term recovery efforts and to address the unmet needs that other federal programs have not been able to address previously. These funds are to supplement and fill any remaining gaps. It cannot supplant other federal funding. So the city of Fort Worth actually was allocated $16.6 million in May of 2022. And then the second allocation came a little bit later of $10.8 million in November of 2022. And that total allocation is $27.4 million. And so these funds are to assist any individuals or entities that was impacted during that Winter Storm Uri in 2021. All right, so this is our multifamily new construction. Currently, it is proposed or budget for $8 million. So the award method is we will plan to do a NOFA, and we'll have a timeline later on for you guys to see. That a maximum award amount for each organization or developer that applies is $2 million. And it's to replace the housing loss that we had during the storm. It's also for low to mod housing or LMH benefit. So it would assist 51% of units which must comply locally with the standards for affordable to LMI households. Eligible applicants must provide financial documentation, meet underwriting guidelines, and financially feasible.
Go ahead. You can do it. You can do it.
Multifamily rehab. So these are two different programs within multifamily. So the rehab component is actually $5 million. And again, we will go through the NOFA process to gather developers on this project as well. Again, that maximum award is $2 million. And this, again, is to assist at least 51% of units must be low moderate income households. It is designed to support the preservation of rental units, and again, those eligibility requirements. So here's our timeline. This is from the beginning, and we'll go through where we are now. And so again, Winter Storm Uri was in February of 2021. HUD allocated the funds in March of 2022. In May of 2022, we received our Federal Register allocation notice, and then the first public comment period began in August of 2022. We also had our first action plan hearing in that same year of 2022, as well as the public comment period end date. more timelines. So we received the additional funding in November of 2022 with the extension for these items in November of 2022. And then we had to go through another period of comments. And then we drafted the action plan and presented that to our Community Development Council, which is appointed by our City Council in 2023. The City Council approved the request in January of 2023, and the action plan was actually submitted to HUD in February of 2023. Excuse me. So last year of 2023, we started working on the implementation plan, organizational chart, and budget. And it has here that we did our Community Development Council Board Retreat in September of 2023, which we do every year in September. Our HUD grant agreement actually got executed January of 2024, earlier this year. So we are excited. We started working on our policies and procedures for single family. And are still working on that, but I'll kind of skip down. So in this process, we're working on intake applications and all that for our single family. And then hopefully, and this may be pushed back, this is where the timeline kind of gets a little sticky, is we will go to council in November of this year to get the multifamily, single family and infrastructure approved. Between November and December, hopefully our HUD CPD rep can review what we have for our policies, procedures, and approve or acknowledge those policies, procedures to start our programs up. So the anticipated program start date for single family is probably more so going to be roughly in line with the beginning part of next year, January of 2025. And during this time period for multifamily, we are working on starting to implement policies and procedures. And so we don't really have an anticipated date of when the multifamily program will be up and running or when the NOFA will be sent out, but we will most certainly keep you guys up to date on that status. Thank you. And does anyone have any questions for me? All right. Thanks, Chad. And
Thank
Diane.
you, Tamara. All right. Well, I've got the captive audience. Any other questions, feedback? Diane, we are going to allow them to submit any written questions to the HTC at FortWorthTexas.gov by this Friday. If you have any, and then we'll publish a response by next Friday on those questions. And if you'll go back up to the timeline, just so everyone can see if there was any questions on that. All right. Well, hearing none, I thank everyone. I thank all the staff, city staff that joined us and all of our developers. So I'm looking forward to having some good projects. Thank you.
Thanks, Chad.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.